For decades, Felicia Rashad stood as a symbol of poise, intelligence, and moral steadiness on American television. To millions of viewers, she was more than a performer delivering lines. She embodied reassurance. Her presence felt intentional and composed, her voice measured, her posture dignified. Audiences associated her with stability during a period when representations of Black family life on national television were limited and often distorted. That perception did not emerge accidentally. It was cultivated through performance, cultural timing, and the hunger of viewers for characters who reflected aspiration without caricature. Over time, the line between character and individual blurred. The authority she portrayed on screen began to shape expectations of who she must be in real life. When later controversies connected to her most famous television work resurfaced, the reaction was intensified by that long-standing image. People were not simply evaluating statements. They were comparing them to a persona they had trusted for decades. The emotional investment audiences placed in her role complicated how they interpreted her responses, illustrating how celebrity identity can become intertwined with public morality in ways that are both powerful and precarious. Long before national recognition, Rashad's worldview was shaped by upbringing and environment. Raised in Houston, Texas, in a family that valued education, artistic expression, and discipline, she absorbed the idea that personal conduct reflected collective identity. For many Black families striving for professional success in mid-20th century America, public composure was not optional. It was protection. Excellence had to be undeniable, behavior had to be measured, and mistakes carried amplified consequences. Within that framework, restraint became strength. Emotional control signaled intelligence and preparedness. Questioning authority publicly could be interpreted not as courage, but as recklessness. These early lessons did not simply influence her personality, they formed the foundation of her professional survival skills. The entertainment industry she would later enter was hierarchical and competitive, especially for Black women. Knowing when to speak and when to remain silent was often framed as strategic wisdom. Understanding that historical context is essential when examining later decisions. Silence in such environments was rarely simple indifference. It was frequently a learned response shaped by generational memory, economic vulnerability, and awareness of how quickly opportunity could vanish. Her years at Howard University reinforced that sense of responsibility. As one of the most prominent historically Black institutions in the United States, the university cultivated not only talent but representation. Students were encouraged to see themselves as ambassadors of possibility. Achievement was communal. Success challenged stereotypes, failure risked reinforcing them. In that environment, Rashad refined her craft in theater and music while internalizing the expectation of composure under scrutiny. Professionalism meant preparation, punctuality, and respect for hierarchy. Faculty mentors emphasized discipline as the bridge between talent and longevity. These values later translated seamlessly into her stage career. On Broadway, rehearsal rooms functioned through structure and authority. Directors set tone, actors executed with precision. The culture rewarded reliability. To question leadership required confidence that the system would protect dissenting voices. For many performers, particularly women of color navigating limited opportunities, such confidence did not exist. Advancement often depended on being viewed as dependable and cooperative. This background helps explain why stability, rather than disruption, became her default professional instinct. When Rashad transitioned from theater to television and joined the groundbreaking sitcom that would define her public legacy, she reportedly approached it as another professional commitment rather than a social revolution. Yet the series quickly became one of the most influential portrayals of an upper-middle-class Black family in American media history. Bill Cosby, who served not only as star but as a central creative authority, held significant influence over scripts, casting, and production tone. Within many successful television productions, authority naturally concentrates at the top. Clear leadership can produce coherence and consistency. However, concentrated power can also discourage questioning. As the show gained popularity, it became more than entertainment. It symbolized progress. That symbolism created emotional investment among cast members and viewers alike. Success fostered trust in leadership and a desire to protect what felt historic. In retrospect, critics argue that such environments can unintentionally create blind spots. Participants may focus intensely on performance quality while minimizing peripheral concerns. At the time, the set reportedly felt structured and professional. Years later, as allegations against Cosby multiplied and legal proceedings unfolded publicly, former colleagues faced renewed scrutiny. Public reaction to Rashad's initial expressions of support for her former co-star revealed how deeply audiences equated her on-screen morality with off-screen judgment. As broader cultural conversations about power dynamics intensified, Rashad acknowledged that revisiting memory is rarely straightforward. Memory evolves when new information reframes old experiences. Situations once dismissed as private or insignificant can acquire different emotional weight in hindsight. She has indicated that her reflections center less on legal determinations and more on moral awareness. The distinction matters. Being part of a cultural phenomenon tied to later scandal does not equate to criminal responsibility, yet it does invite examination of institutional silence. For many professionals working within hierarchical industries, especially in previous decades, silence was often perceived as pragmatic. Speaking publicly could threaten careers and livelihoods. Recognizing that context does not erase the consequences of silence, but it complicates the narrative. Rashad's later emphasis on education and mentorship reflects an attempt to engage with those complexities constructively. By discussing power openly with younger artists, she contributes to a cultural shift that encourages questioning authority rather than deferring automatically. Her legacy, therefore, exists in layered form, a celebrated body of work that reshaped representation, intertwined with a period of national reckoning about trust, influence, and accountability. Holding those layers together requires nuance rather than simplification, acknowledging both cultural contribution and the lessons drawn from controversy.